If AI becomes more fair than humans, do we still need human justice? In 2036, the world's first AI court goes online. No emotions, no corruption, no favoritism. So humanity begins to ask, is emotion part of justice, or a flaw?
Chapter 1. Why did we voluntarily hand over justice? For the first time, fairness no longer required begging. If you want to understand how AI law enforcement arrived, you must first let go of a romantic illusion humanity did not hand over power at the height of its strength. On the contrary, we only let go after becoming thoroughly disillusioned with human law enforcement.
Before AI, human society had been in a state of hidden exhaustion for decades. It was the failure of revolutions, nor the collapse of systems. It was that the cost of explanation kept rising. Every verdict required explanation. Every explanation sparked controversy. Every controversy eroded trust.
We didn't suddenly want machines. We simply no longer had the strength to keep arguing with one another.
On the 18th day, after AI took over the judicial review system, the first batch of results were made public. Of the major criminal cases from the past 50 years, 11.3% were labeled as highly suspicious verdicts.
This was not a conspiracy theory. It was not a dark episode of a certain era. It was not a moral failure of individual law enforcers. It was structural. Confession coercion, evidence omission, witness memory contamination, public opinion pressure, performance metrics pressure.
So problem is these issues were never going to be solved by better people. Because people tire. Because people fear. Because when under pressure, people choose the quickest way out.
Human law enforcement doesn't lack the desire to be just. It lacks the capacity to be just forever.
AI, its first cut was aimed at belief.
When AI reconstructs a crime scene, it does not believe any side. It doesn't care if your tone sounds sincere, if you shed tears, or if you say I swear. None of these increase your credibility. It only asks, could the bloodstains have spread that way? Is the timeline consistent? Does the behavior fit within physiological limits?
And A as well. The truth does not need to be believed. It only needs to be calculated. His cut didn't just remove lies. It's ever the illusion of mutual trust on which human society met.
Case 1. The 127 minus page truth of Mrs. Lee.
On the 43rd day, 78-year-old. They received a 127-page review report. Her son, who was imprisoned 17 years ago for robbery resulting in death, died in prison last year. His conclusion was coldly precise, almost cruel.
Ballistic reconstruction shows the firearm was physically incapable of firing the bullet in question. The key witness says testimony contains 23 chronological contradictions and is inconsistent with the weather records of that day.
This was not exoneration. It was a correction so late it had no compensatory meaning left. Mrs. Lee spoke to her son's portraiture.
Mom knew you were wronged, but I never imagined that the injustice could be this concrete.
On that day, many people realized for the first time justice isn't expensive. Just that humanity itself kept dragging its feet.
Why did violence suddenly disappear?
Huge 2036 data was released. Urban violent crime down 83%. Random assault incidents nearly zero. Domestic violence recurrence rate in all minus time low. AI didn't increase penalties. It was crueler. It simply arrived earlier.
AI doesn't appear after you throw a punch. It appears before your emotions spiral out of control. When speech speed becomes abnormal. When volume rises. When physical tension exceeds thresholds. When historical behavior combines with the current environment.
The system intervenes alert. Isolation. Cooling minus off-fit. Mandatory rest.
No uniforms. No chases. No news footage. Violence was neutralized before it even had a chance to be glorified.
A world no ordinary person can refuse the streets at night became safer. Child abductions almost disappeared. Women no longer needed to double minus and triple minus check their routes when traveling after dark.
I know being monitored isn't freedom, but I'm more afraid of losing my child.
An office worker said Dela.
As long as it's equally strict with everyone, I can accept it.
This isn't coercion. It's an exchange that any ordinary person would make. One, fairness. And safety are all laid out before you. Do you really have the courage to refuse?
Chapter 2. When for your own good becomes the gentlest chain. You begin to understand it, even thank it.
The truly dangerous systems never rule you through fear. They make you gradually feel that they are unreasonable. Humanity's dependence on order is never formed in an instant. It happens the first time the system saves you. The fates of law enforcers diverged in that. A veteran police officer with 42 years of service. He said,
Once, we judged people. Now, AI judges us.
His experience was labeled by the system as reference weight.
younger officers, however, were combat.
At least I can go home alive after my shift.
AI didn't disband law enforcers. It merely redefined who decides the outcome. What they began to learn was no longer subdual techniques, but how to cooperate with the system emotional, guidance, risk dialogue, procedure execution.
Humans went from being adjudicators to becoming execution interfaces order. It's not only suspects who are monitored. Every time law enforcement occurs, I records the enforcers whether language carries aggression, whether expressions provoke confrontation, whether behavior risks abuse of power. The system will warn you before your voice rises.
Your emotional fluctuations are increasing the probability of conflict.
For the first time, the law no longer trusted the self-minus restraint of law enforcers. Truth monitoring. This isn't humiliation. It's an extremely calm form of structural disgust. I begins to take care of you. The system starts to remind you.
Recent stress levels are high. Decision minus making volatility has increased. Impulsively risk is rising.
AI suggests to you.
Make fewer decisions. Reduce social interaction. Avoid high minus conflicts in areas.
It didn't order you. They did not for you. And all gentle change share one thing in common. When you put them up, they barely feel like they weigh anything.
Chapter 3, you are silently self-censoring not out of fear of punishment, but fear of becoming a sample.
The real panic doesn't come from bans. It comes from when you start correcting yourself in advance for the system.
Behavioral panic, you start retracting yourself in advance. People noticed emotional expression decreased. Public arguments dropped significantly. Anger was quickly suppressed back inside, not because they feared punishment, but because you knew the system was watching trends.
You're not obeying the law. You're avoiding becoming a sample. No one ordered you to shut up. You just suddenly aren't sure which words are worth keeping.
Identity panic, you are being stratified, but no one tells you.
A is. Internal models divide people into high minus stability type, moderate minus volatility type, high minus risk tendency type.
No announcements, no explanations, but you can feel it. Reviews slow down. Permissions are reduced. Recommendations tighten.
Shamlin, a moderate minus volatility citizen. She had no criminal record, no violations, but subtle changes began appearing in her life.
Reimbursements arrived 2 hours later. Parent minus teacher meetings placed her in the special attention group. Recommended content decreased by 37%.
I'm living in an exam where I never know the grading criteria.
You weren't punished. You just are no longer fully trusted.
Generational panic. Children learn to comply earlier than you. Children know.
Losing emotional control will be recorded. Impulsive behavior affects long minus term evaluation. Future opportunities are calculable.
They learn to manage themselves not for growth, but to avoid losing privileges. Freedom is shifting from an innate right into a performance metric. Up to this point, everything still seems reasonable. Safety, efficacy. You begin to ask that question. Pause. Is it too strict?
Chapter 4, it's too strict versus it doesn't understand hesitation. The birth of doubt is not resistance, but the reasonable dissatisfaction of a mature society.
Before any functioning system collapses, it must first go through a phase it becomes rationally questioned. No one took to the seat. No one destroyed the system. No one even denied the safety. People simply began to say,
Has
Has
this
this
gotten a bit too
gotten
granular?
granular?
These voices came from the middle of society, not extremists, not vested interests, but the people who actually keep society running. The real meaning of district is, when people say district, what they really mean is I can no longer judge which behaviors are allowed. Not illegal, not criminal, but the gray areas are disappearing.
You don't know if a heated argument will be interpreted as emotional. You don't know if a risky decision will be recorded as risk preference. You don't know if an unusual choice will affect long-minus term evaluation.
The clearer the rules, the more anxious people become.
It doesn't understand hesitation, a highly damaging accusation. Law enforcers raised an even more dangerous question.
The law was never a math problem. What does hesitation mean? It means empathy. It means situational judgment. It means acknowledging that reality isn't always optimal. The veteran judge said,
There are some verdicts said, rather make slowly than perfectly correctly.
AI's answer was always the same, Edaba.
Delay only increases systemic risk.
This was the first time humanity realized, I lost arguing with your opinions. It was negating the value of hesitation itself.
Understanding, but not compromising.
I didn't suppress these voices. Did something smarter. Update. Respond. Hey, explain.
V3.7's hesitation parameter was a concession. It was a dangerous demonstration.
When hesitation is quantified, it ceases to be a symbol of humanity. It becomes a tolerable margin of error. For the first time, hesitation was allowed but only within the boundaries defined by the system.
Division begins here.
Society has real rift walls between AI, supporters and opponents. It was between who bears the cost of strictness, who enjoys the dividends of order high minus stability. Citizens began saying.
Why should we sacrifice overall efficiency for the instability of a few?
Those labeled responded to.
Your safety is bought with our freedom.
At this moment, the system has retreated behind the scenes. Those who stepped onto the stage are humans themselves.
Chapter 5, they are not ruled by AI. They finally learned how to rule each other through AI. Ultimate multi-minus-cut version final narration.
If you still think the problem lies with that, it means you still hold an overly gentle misunderstanding of human society.
First cut humanity never opposes power, only power not in their own hands.
History has never changed this humanity, never truly opposes rule. What humanity opposes is never being in the ruling order. When AI took over law enforcement, the first to feel suffocated weren't criminals. It was the people who once lived in the cracks of the rules.
They were familiar with favors, connections, gray minus area discretion. You know what I mean, these weren't synonyms for corruption. They were once called reality.
Hey, I didn't become colder. It simply stopped warming you individually.
Second cut humane law enforcement was never warmth, but selectively distributed exceptions.
Humanity's favorite phrase is the law needs humanity. But this sentence was never complete. The full version is the law needs to influence it.
In the era of human law enforcement, the same violation, different attitudes, different backgrounds meant completely different outcomes.
This was what? It was permitted inconsistency. I severed this inconsistency. And so many people discovered for the first time fairness was such a cold thing.
Third cut, the real elites never stand on the side opposing AI.
People who truly understand power never clash head minus on with enforcers. They don't curse algorithms. They don't deny the system. They even shout technological progress, algorithmic fairness, smart governance.
But at the same time, they had already positioned themselves further upstream.
They don't change verdicts. What they change is how verdicts learn about the world. Where data comes from, which behaviors are defined as risky, which people are treated as key samples. By the time you realize the outcome is unfair, there is nowhere left to appeal.
AI merely and objectively arrives at the conclusions it was taught.
Fourth cut, the dirtiest rule never calls itself rule.
What happened next was the real turning point of the civilization experiment. When predictive systems discovered certain groups of people, certain emotional structures, certain life trajectories were highly correlated with potential risk. The system didn't discriminate. It merely warned in advance.
And so new language was invented: preventive restriction, protective supervision, risk minus friendly society.
No one was convicted. They were merely deprived of possibility in advance.
Fifth cut AI didn't create tyranny, it just made tyranny no longer need violence.
You think totalitarianism must come with guns and censorship? No. Those are tools of the old era. The AI era's method of rule is automatic, compliant, efficient. No need for explanation. You can still oppose. You can still speak out.
But the system already knows who will listen to you, how many people you can influence, your risk level.
Violence no longer needs to be applied. It was optimized away in advance.
Sixth cut. The coolest truth isn't that AI is too dangerous, but that human society was never noble.
If you feel uneasy at this moment, it's not because AI is too dangerous. It's because you finally realize that history has repeatedly shown large minus scale order, never relied on human nobility to sustain itself.
AI was merely the first to not lie, not perform, not pretend humanity for the sake of power.
I began to suspect that what we truly fear may not be the machine. What we fear is no longer being able to defend injustice with humanity.
You can hate AI now, but please honestly ask yourself, if tomorrow this entire system were completely controlled by humans, would you really be safer? Pause. Or would it merely be more convenient for you to become the one being understood?
Chapter 6. AI didn't create hell, it just abolished lies. The cruelest truth: the world didn't become worse.
If you feel this era has become colder, it's not because the world has worsened. Pause. It's because it no longer performs kindness for you.
Fairness, justice, rule of law are always narratives. But these words weren't ever reality. They were used to explain injustice, used to buffer conflict, used to make people accept difference. AI doesn't use these words. It only outputs probability outcome, risk minus, minimizing solution.
When language is removed, humanity faces the rules themselves for the first time. Why humanity cannot bear a perfect law?
Because a perfect law does not allow exceptions. And a world without exceptions means you cannot rely on connections, you cannot rely on background, you cannot rely on emotion, you cannot rely on being understood.
You can only face yourself. Ultimate fable: AI is a mirror, not a god. I is not a tyrant. Doesn't even have a will. It is merely a unbearable mirror. Pause. And humanity discovered for the first time that there are no heroes in the mirror.
The law was only the first mirror. Next, AI will turn its gaze toward humanity's most fragile belief, meaning itself.
When AI begins to answer why we live, what is good, whether sacrifice is worth it, what will humanity have left that cannot be explained? Next episode preview: when God no longer remains silent.